First Maccabees chapter 1 from Alexander to Antiochus. After Alexander Macedonian, Philip's son, who came from the land of the Kittim, had defeated Darius, king of the Persian and the Medes. He became king in his place, having first ruled in Greece. He fought many battles, captured the fortresses, and put the king of the earth to the death. He advanced to the ends of the earth, gathering plunder from many nations. The earth fell silent before him, and his heart became proud and arrogant. He collected a very strong army and won dominion over provinces, nations, and the ruler, and they paid him tribute. But after all this, he took to his bed, realizing that he was going to die. So he summoned his noblest official who had been brought up with him from his youth and divided his kingdom among them while he was still alive. Alexander had reigned 12 years when he died, so his official took over his kingdom, each in his own territories. And after his death, they all put on diadems, and so did their son after them for many years, multiplying evils on the earth. There sprang from this unsinful offshoot Antiochus Epiphanes, son of the king Antiochus, once hosted at Rome. He became king in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. Lawless Jews. In those days there appeared in Israel transgressors of the law who seduced many, saying, "Let us go and make a covenant with the Gentiles all around us. Since we separated from them, many evils have come upon us." The proposal was agreeable. Some from among the people promptly went to the king, and he authorized them to introduce the ordinance of the Gentiles. Thereupon they built a gymnasium in Jerusalem according to the Gentile custom. They disguised their circumcision and abandoned the holy covenant. They allied themselves with the Gentiles and sold themselves to wrongdoing. Antiochus in Egypt. When his kingdom seemed secure, Antiochus undertook to become king of the land of Egypt and to rule over both kingdoms. He invaded Egypt with a strong force, with a chariot, elephant, and cavalry, and with a large fleet. To make war on the Ptolemy, king of Egypt, Ptolemy was frightened at his presence and fled, and many were wounded and fell dead. The fortified cities in the land of Egypt were captured, and Antiochus plundered the land of Egypt. Robbery of the temples. After Antiochus had defeated Egypt in the 140 years, he returned and went up against Israel and against Jerusalem with a strong force. He insolently entered the sanctuary and took away the golden altars, the lampstand for the rite with all the utensils, the offering table, the cups and the bowls, the golden censers and the curtains, the cornice and the golden ornament on the facade of the temple. He strode it all out. And he took away the silver and the gold and the precious vessels. He also took all the hidden treasure he could find. Taking all this, he went back to his own country. He shed much blood and spoke with great arrogance. And there was a great mourning throughout all Israel. And the ruler and the elders groaned, the young men and the men languished, and the beauty of the woman faded. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, while the bride sitting in the chamber mourned. And the land quaked on the account of the inhabitant, and all the house of the Jacob was clothed with shame, attack, and occupation. 2 years later, the king sent the Mishael commander to the city of the Judah, and he came to Jerusalem with a strong force. He spoke to them deceitfully in peaceful terms, and they believed him. Then he attacked the city suddenly in great onslaught, and destroyed many of the people in Israel. He plundered the city and set fire to it, demolished its houses and its surrounding walls. And they took captive the women and the children and seized the animals. Then they built up the city of David with the high, strong wall and the strong towers, and it became their citadels. They installed a simple race, transgressors of the law, who fortified themselves inside it. They stored up the weapons and the provision, depositing there the plunder they had collected from Jerusalem, and they became a great snare. The citadel became the ambush against the sanctuary and the wicked adversary to Israel at all times. They shed innocent blood around the sanctuary. They defiled the sanctuaries. Because of them, the inhabitant of the Jerusalem fled away. She became an abode of the strangers. She became a stranger to her own offspring, and her children forsook her. Her sanctuary became desolate as a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into the mourning, her Sabbaths to shame, her honor to contempt. As her glory had been, so great was her dishonor. Her exaltation was turned into mourning, religious persecution. Then the king wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and abandoned their particular custom. All the Gentiles conformed to the command of the king. And the many Israelites delighted in his religion. They sacrificed to idols and profaned the Sabbath. The king sent the letters by the messenger to the Jerusalem and the city of the Judah, ordering them to follow custom foreign to their land, to prohibit the burnt offering, sacrifice, and the libation in the sanctuary, to profane the Sabbaths and the feast days, to desecrate the sanctuary and the sacred minister, to build the pagan altars and the temple and the shrine, to sacrifice swine and unclean animals, to leave their son uncircumcised, and to defile themselves with every kind of the impurity and abomination, so that they might forget the law and the challenge of its ordinance. Whoever refused to act according to the command of the king was to be put to death. In words such as these, he wrote to his whole kingdom. He appointed an inspector over all the people, and he ordered the city of the Judah to offering sacrifice, each city in turn. Many people, those who abandoned the law, joined them and committed evil in the land. They drove Israel into the hiding wherever places of refuge could be found. On the 15th day of the month Kislev, in the year 145, the king erected the desolating abomination upon the altar of the burnt offering, and in the surrounding city of the Judah they built the pagan altars. They also burned the incense at the door of the houses and in the street, and scroll of the law that they found they tore up the bone. Whoever was found with the scroll of the covenant and whoever observed the law was condemned to death by royal decrees. So they used their power against Israel, against those who were caught each month in the cities. On the 25th day of each month, they sacrificed on the pagan altar that was over the altar of the burnt offering. In keeping with the decree, they put to death women who had their children circumcised, and they hung their babies from their necks. Their families also and those who had circumcised them were killed. But many in Israel were determined and resolved in their heart not to eat anything unclean. They preferred to die rather than to be defiled with the food or to profane the holy covenant, and they did die. And very great wrath came upon Israel. First Maccabees chapter 2. Mattathias and his sons. In those days, Mattathias, son of John, son of the Simeon, a priest of the family of the Joarabes, left Jerusalem and settled in Modai. He had 5 sons: John, who was called Gadi, Simon, who was called Tashish, Judas, who was called Maccabees, Elijah, who was called Alvaran, and Jonathan, who was called Alphas. When he saw the sacrileges that were being committed in Judah and Jerusalem, he said, "Woe is me, why was I born to see the ruin of my people, the ruin of the holy city, to dwell there as it was given into the hands of the enemies, the sanctuary into the hands of the strangers. Her temple has become like a man disgraced, her glorious vessels carried up as spoils. Her infants murdered in her street, her youth by the sword of the enemies. What nation has not taken its share of her lalams and laid its hand on her spoils? All her adornment has been taken away. Once free, she has become a slave. We see our sanctuary laid waste, our beauty, our glory. The Gentiles have defiled them. Why are we still alive?" Then Mattathias had his sons tore their garment, put on sackcloth, and mourned bitterly. Pagan worship refused and resisted. The official of the king in charge of the enforcing the apostates came to the city of the Modai to make them sacrifice. Many of the Israelites joined them, but Mattathias and his sons drew together. Then the official of the king addressed Mattathias, "You are a leader and honorable and great man in this city, supported by sons and kindred. Come now, be the first to obey the king's command, and as all the Gentile and the Judean and those who are left in Jerusalem have done. Then you and your sons shall be numbered among the king's friends, and you and your sons shall be honored with silver and gold and many gifts." But Mattathias answered in a loud voice, all the Gentiles in the king's realm obey him, so that they forsake the religion of their ancestors and consent to the king's orders. Yet I and my sons and my kindred will keep to the covenant of our ancestors. Heaven forbid that we should forsake the law and the commandment. We will not obey the words of the king by the departing from our religion in the slightest degree. As he finished saying these words, as a certain Jew came forth in the sight of the Lord to offer sacrifice on the altar in the Modai according to the king's orders. When Mattathias saw him, he was filled with zeal, his heart was moved, and his just fury was aroused. He sprang forward and killed him upon the altars. At the same time, he also killed the messenger of the king who were forcing them to sacrifice, and he tore down the altars. Thus he showed his zeal for the Lord, just as Phinehas did with Jimri, son of Saul. Then Mattathias cried out in the city, "Let everyone who is jealous for the Lord and who stands by the covenant follow me." Then he and his sons fled to the mountains, leaving behind in the city all their possessions. At that time, many who sought the righteousness and the justice went out into the wilderness to settle there. They and their children, their wives, and their animals, because of misfortunes pressed so hard on them. It was reported to the official and the soldiers of the king who were in the city of David in Jerusalem that those who had flouted the king's order had gone out to the secret refuges in the wilderness. Many hurried out after them, and having caught up with them, camped opposite and prepared to attack them on the Sabbath. The pursuer said to them, "Enough of this, come out and obey the king's command, and you will live." But they replied, "We will not come out, nor will he obey the king's command to profane the Sabbath." Then the enemy attacked them at once. But they did not retaliate. They neither threw stone nor broke up the secret refuges. They said, "Let us all die in innocence. Heaven and earth are our witnesses that you destroy us unjustly." So the official and soldier attacked them on the Sabbath, and they died with their wives, their children, and their animals, to the number of 1,000 persons. When Mattathias and his friends heard of it, they mourned deeply for them. They said to one another, "If we all do as the kindred have done, and do not fight against the Gentiles, for our lives are lost, they'll soon destroy us from the earth." So on that day they came to this decision: "Let's fight against anyone who attacks us on the Sabbath, so that we may not all die as one kindred died in the secret refuges." Then they were joined by a group of the Hashidins, mighty warriors of the Israel, all of them devoted to the law. And all those who were fleeing from the persecution joined them and supported them. They gathered an army and struck down sinners in their wrath and the lawless in their angers, and the survivors fled to the Gentiles for safety. Mattathias and his friends went about and tore down the pagan altars. They also forcibly circumcised any uncircumcised boys whom they found in the territory of Israel. They put to flight the arrogant, and the work prospered in their hands. They saved the law from the hands of the Gentiles and of the kings, and did not let the sinner triumph. Farewell of the Mattathias. When the time came for the Mattathias to die, he said to his son, "Arrogance and the scorn have now grown strong. It is time of the just and the violent arrest. Therefore, my children, be zealous for the law and give your lives for the covenant of our ancestors. Remember the deeds that our ancestors did in their times, and you shall win great honor and an everlasting name." Was not Abraham found faithful in trial, and it was credited to him as righteousness? Joseph, when in distress, kept the commandment, and he became master of Egypt. Phinehas, our ancestor, for his burning zeal, received the covenant of the everlasting priesthood. Joshua, for executing his commission, became a judge in Israel. Caleb, for bearing witness before the assembly, received an inheritance in the land. David, for his loyalty, received as a heritage a throne of the eternal kingship. Eliab, for his burning zeal for the law, was taken up to heaven. Hananiah, Azariah, and Meshach, for their faith, were saved from the fire. Daniel, for his innocence, was delivered from the mouth of the lions. And so consider this from generation to generation, that none who hope in heaven shall fail in strength. Do not fear the work of the sinners, for their glory ends in corruption and worms. Today exalted, tomorrow not to be found. They have returned to dust. Their schemes have perished. Children, be courageous and strong in keeping in the law, for by it you shall be glorified. Here is your brother Simeon, who I knew is a wise counselor. Listen to him always, and he will be a father to you. And Judah's Maccabees, mighty warriors from his youth, shall be the leader of your army and wage the war against the nations. Gather about you all who observe the law and avenge your peoples. Pay back the Gentiles that what they deserve and observe the precept of the laws. Then he blessed them, and he was gathered to his ancestors. He died in the year 146 and was buried in the tomb of his ancestor in the Modine. And all Israel mourned him greatly. First, Maccabees chapter 3. Then his son Judas, who was called Maccabeus, took his place. All his brother and all who had joined his father supported him, and they gradually carried on Israel's rule. He spread abroad the glory of his people and put on his breastplate like a giant. He armed himself with the weapon of the war. He fought the battles and protected the camp with his sword. In his deed, he was like a lion, like a young lion roaring for prey. He pursued the lawless, hunting them out, and those who troubled his people he destroyed by fire. The lawless were cowed by fear of him, and all evildoers were dismayed. By his hand the deliverance was happily achieved. And he afflicted many kings. He gave joy to the Jacob by his deed, and his memory he is blessed forever. He went above the city of the Judah, destroying the renegade there. He turned away last from Israel. Was renowned to the ends of the earth, and gathered together those who were perishing. Then Apollonius gathered together the Gentiles along with the large army from the Samaria to fight against Israel. When Judas learned of it, he went out to meet him and struck and killed him. Many fell wounded, and the rest fled. They took their spoils, and Judas took the sword of the Apollonius and fought with it the rest of his life. But Saron, commander of the Syrian army, heard that Judah had mustered an assembly of faithful men ready for war. So he said, I'll make a name for myself and win honor in the kingdom. I'll wage war against Judah and his followers, who have despised the king's command. And again, a large company of the renegade advanced with him to help him take revenge on the Israelites. When he reached the ascent of the Beth Horon, Judas went out to meet him with a few men. But when they saw the army coming against them, they said to Judas, How can we, few as you are, fight such a strong host as this? Besides, we are weak since we have not eaten today. But Judas said, Many are easily hemmed in by a few. In the sight of the heaven there is no difference between deliverance by many or by few. For victory in war does not depend upon the size of the army, but on the strength that comes from heaven. With great presumption and lawlessness they come against us to destroy us and our wives and children and to despoil us. But we are fighting for our lives, our laws. He will crush them before us, so do not fear them. When he finished speaking, he rushed suddenly upon Saron and his army, who were crushed before him. He pursued Saron down the descent of the Beth Horon into the plain. About 800 of their men fell, and the rest fled to the land of the Philistines. Then Judah and his brother began to be feared, and the dread fell upon the Gentiles about them. His fame reached the king, and the Gentiles talked about the battle of the Judas. The king's strategy. When King Antiochus heard this report, he was filled with rage, so he ordered that all forces of the kingdom be gathered, a very strong army. He opened his treasury, gave his soldiers a year's pay, and commanded them to be prepared for anything. But Then he saw that this exhausted the money in his treasury. Moreover, the tribute from the province was small because of the dissension and the distress he had brought upon the land by abolishing the laws which had been in effect from of old. He feared that as it had happened once or twice, he would not have enough for his expenses and for the gift that he was accustomed to give with a lavish hand. More so than all previous kings. Greatly perplexed, he decided to go to Persia and levy tribute on those provinces and so raise a large sum of the money. He left Lysias, a noble of the royal descent, in charge of the king's affair from the Euphrates River to the frontier of Egypt, and commissioned him to take care of his son Antiochus until his return. He entrusted to him half of his force and the elephant, and gave him instruction concerning everything he wanted done. As for the inhabitants of the Judea and Jerusalem, Lysias was to send an army against them to crush and destroy the power of Israel and the remnant of the Jerusalem and efface their memory from the place. He was to settle foreigners in all their territory and distribute their land by lot. The king took the remaining half of the army and set out from Antioch, his capital, in the year 147. He crossed the Euphrates River and went through the provinces beyond. Preparation for battles. Lysias chose Ptolemy, son of the Dorymanes, and Nicanor and Gorgias, powerful men among the king's friends. And with them he sent 40,000 foot soldiers and 7,000 cavalry to invade and ravage the land of the Judah according to the king's orders. Setting out with their whole force, they came and pitched their camp near Emmanuel in the plain. When the merchants of the region heard of the prowess, they came to the camp, bringing a huge sum of the silver and gold, along with the pharaohs to buy the Israelites as slaves. A force from Edom and from Philistia joined with them. Judah and his brothers saw that evils had multiplied and that army were encamped within their territories. They learned of the orders which the king had given to destroy and utterly wipe out the peoples. So they said to one another, "Let us raise our people from their ruin and fight for them and for our sanctuaries." The assembly gathered together to prepare for battle and to pray and ask for mercy and compassion. Jerusalem was uninhabited like a wilderness. Not one of the children came in or went out. The sanctuary was trampled on and the foreigners were in citadels. It was in habitation for Gentiles. Joy had disappeared from Jacob, and the flute and the harp were silent. Thus they assembled and went to Mizpah near Jerusalem, because formerly at Mizpah there was a place of the prayer for Israel. That day they fasted and wore sackcloth. They sprinkled the ashes on their heads and tore their garments. They unrolled the scroll of the law to learn about the things for which the Gentiles consulted the image of their idols. They brought with them the priestly garment, the first fruit and the tithes. And they brought forward the Nazarite who had completed the time of their vows. And they cried aloud to heaven, "What shall we do with these, and where shall we take them? For your sanctuary has been trampled on and profaned, and your priests were in the mourning and the humbles. Now the Gentiles are gathered together against us to destroy us. You know what they plot against us. How shall we be able to resist them unless you help us?" Then they blew the trumpet and cried out loudly. After this, Judah appointed the officials for the people, over thousands, over hundreds, over fifties, and over tens. He proclaimed that those who were building houses or were just married or were planting vineyard and those who were afraid could each return home according to the law. Then the army moved up and they camped to the south of the Emmaus. Judah said, "Arm yourself and be brave. In the morning be ready to fight these Gentiles who had assembled against us to destroy us and our sanctuaries. It is better for us to die in battle than to witness to evils befalling our nation and our sanctuary. Whatever is willed in heaven will be done." First Maccabees chapter 4, victory over Gorgias. Now Gorgias took 5,000 infantry and 1,000 picked cavalry, and this detachment set out at night. In order to fall upon the camp of the Jews in a surprise attack, some from the citadel were his guide. Judas heard of it and himself set out with his soldiers to attack the king's army at the Emmaus. While these forces were still scattered away from the camp, during the night Gorgias came into the camp of the Judas and found no one there, so he sought them in the mountains, saying, "They are fleeing from us." But at daybreak Judas appeared in the plain with 3,000 men. Furthermore, they lacked the helmet and the sword they wanted. They saw the army of the Gentiles strong, breastplated, and flanked with cavalry, and made up the experienced soldiers. Judah said to the men with him, "Do not fear their number or dread their attacks. Remember how our ancestors were saved in the Red Sea when Pharaoh pursued them with the army. So now let us cry to heaven in the hope that He will favor us. Remember the covenant with our ancestors and destroy this army before us today. All the Gentiles shall know that there is one who redeems and delivers Israel." When the foreigners looked up and saw them marching toward them, they came out of their camp for battle. The men with Judas blew the trumpet and joined the battle. They crushed the Gentiles who fled toward the plain. Their whole rear guard fell by the sword, and they were pursued as far as Gazara and the plain of the Idumea, to the Azotus and Jamnia. About 3,000 of their men fell. When Judas and army returned from the pursuit, he said to the people, "Do not be greedy for plunder, for there is a fight ahead of us. And Gorgias and his army are near us on the mountain, but now stand firm against our enemies and fight them. Afterwards you can freely take the plunders." And Judas was finishing this speech. A detachment appeared looking down from the mountain. They saw their army had been put to flight and their camp was burning. The smoke they saw revealed what had happened. When they realized this, they completely lost heart, and when they also saw the army of the Judas in the plain ready to attack, they all fled to the land of the foreigners. Then Judas went back to the plundered camp, and they took much gold and silver, cloth dyed blue and marine purple, and great treasure. As they returned, they were singing hymns and glorifying heaven, who is good, whose mercy endures forever. Thus Israel experienced a great deliverance that day. Victory over Lysias. But those foreigners who had escaped went and told Lysias all that had occurred. When he heard it, he was disturbed and discouraged, because things had not turned out in Israel as he intended and as the king had ordered. So the following year he gathered together 60,000 picked men and 5,000 cavalry to fight them. They came into Idumea and camped at the Beth Jor, and Judas met him with 10,000 men. Seeing that the army was strong, he prayed, "Thus blessed are you, Savior of the Israel, who crushed the attack of the mighty one by the hand of your servant David, and delivered the foreign camp into the hand of the Jonathan, the son of Saul, and his armor bearers. Give this army into the hands of your people Israel, make them ashamed of their troops and their cavalries. Strike them with cowardice, weaken the boldness of their strength, and let them trample at their own destruction. Strike them down by the sword of those who love you, that all who know your name may sing your praise." Then they engaged in battle, and about 5,000 of the Lysias' army fell in hand-to-hand fightings. When Lysias saw the tide of the battle turning and the increased boldness of the Judas, whose men were ready either to live or to die nobly, he withdrew to the Antioch and began to recruit the mercenaries so as to return to Judah with great numbers. Purification and rededication of the temples. Then Judah and his brothers said, "Now that our enemy had been crushed, let us go up to purify the sanctuary and rededicate it." So the whole army assembled and went up the mountain Zion. They found the sanctuary desolated, the altar desecrated, the gate burned, the weed growing in the courts as in thicket or on some mountain, and the priest chambers demolished. Then tore the garment and made great lamentation. They spring their heads with ashes, and prostrated themselves, and when the signal was given with a trumpet, they cried out to the heaven. Judah appointed men to attack those in the citadel while he purified the sanctuaries. He chose blameless priests devoted to the law. These purified the sanctuary and carried away the stone of the defilement to an unclean place. They deliberated what ought to be done with the altar to burnt offering that had been desecrated. They decided to best to tear it down, lest it be a lasting shame to them that the Gentile had defiled it. So they tore down the altars. They threw the stone in the suitable place on the temple mount until the coming of the prophet who would determine what to do with them. Then they took uncut stones according to the law and built a new altar like the former one. They also repaired the sanctuary and the interior of the temple and consecrated the courts. They made a new sacred vessel and brought the lampstand, the altar of the incense, and the table into the temples. Then they burned the incense on the altar and lighted the lamp on the lampstand, and these illuminated the temples. They also put loaves on the table and hung up the curtains. Thus they finished all the work they had undertaken. They rose early on the morning of the 25th day of the 9th month, that is the month of the Kislev, in the year 148, and offered the sacrifice according to the law on the new altar of the burnt offering that they had made. On the anniversary of the day on which the Gentile had desecrated it, on that very day it was rededicated with songs, harps, lyres, and cymbals. All the people prostrated themselves and adored and praised heaven, who had given them success. For 8 days they celebrated the dedication of the altar and joyfully offered the burnt offering and the sacrifice of the deliverance and praise. They ornamented the facade of the temple with gold crown and shields. They repaired the gate and braced the chambers and furnished them with doors. There was great joy among the people now that the grace brought by the Gentiles was removed. Then Judas and his brother and the entire assembly of the Israel decreed that every year for 8 days, upon the 25th day of the month Kislev, The day of the dedication of altar should be observed with joy and gladness on the anniversaries. At that time, they built the high walls and the strong towers around Mount Zion to prevent the Gentiles from the coming and trampling it as they had done before. Judah also placed a garrison there to protect it, and likewise fortified Bethel, that the people might have the stronghold facing Idumea. First, Maccabees chapter 5, victory over hostile neighbors. When the nation learned about the whole that the altar had been rebuilt and the sanctuary restored as before, they were enraged. So they decided to destroy the descendants of the Jacob who were among them, and they began to kill and eradicate the people. Then Judah attacked the Edomites at the Akrabethini in Idumea because they were blockading Israel. He dealt them a heavy blow, humbled and despoiled them. He also remembered the malice of the Beninites who had become snare and stumbling block to the people by ambushing them along the roads. He forced them to take refuge in towers which he besieged. He put them under the ban and burned down their towers along with all who were in them. Then he crossed over to the Ammonites, where he found a strong army and a large body of the people with Timothy as their leader. He fought many battles with them, routed them, and struck them down. After seizing Zajor and its villages, he returned to Judea. Liberation of Jews in Galilee and Gilead. The Gentiles in Gilead assembled to destroy the Israelites who were in their territories. Then they fled to the stronghold of the Datimah. They sent a letter to Judah and his brothers, saying, "The Gentiles around us had assembled against us to destroy us. And they are preparing to come and seize this stronghold to which we have fled. Timothy is the leader of their army. Come at once to rescue us from them, for many of us have fallen. All our kindred who were in territory of the Tobiites have been killed. The Gentiles have captured their wives, their children, and their goods, and they have slain there about 1,000 men." While they were reading this letter, suddenly other messenger with garment torn arrived from the Galilee to deliver a similar message, that the inhabitants of the Ptolemais, Tyre and Sidon, and the whole Gentile Galilee have joined the forces to destroy us. When Judah and the people heard this, a great assembly convened to consider what they should do for their kindred who were in distress and being attacked by enemies. Judah said to his brother Simon, "Choose men for yourself and go, rescue your kindred in Galilee. My brother Jonathan and I will go to Gilead." He left Joseph, son of Zechariah, and Azariah, leader of the people, with the rest of the army in Judea to guard it. He commanded them, "Take charge of these people, but do not join battle against the Gentiles until we return." 3,000 men were allotted to Simon to go into Galilee, and 8,000 men to Judah for Gilead. Simon went into the Galilee and fought many battles with the Gentiles. They were crushed before him. And he pursued them to the very gate of the Ptolemais. About 3,000 of the Gentiles fell, and he gathered their spoils. He took with him the Jews who were in Galilee and Arabata, with their wives and children and all that they had, and brought them to Judea with great rejoicing. Judah's Maccabees and his brother Jonathan crossed the Jordan and marched for 3 days through the wilderness. There they met some Nabateans who received them peaceably and told them all that had happened to their kindred in Gilead. Many of them are shut up in Bozrah, in Bosa near Alima, in Chespor, Maked, and Ganaim. All of these are large fortified cities. And some are shut up in other cities of the Gilead. Tomorrow the enemy plan to attack the stronghold and seize and destroy all these people in one day. Thereupon Judah suddenly changed the direction with his army, marched across the wilderness to Bozrah, and captured the city. He put every male to the sword, took all their spoil, and set fire to the city. He led his army from that place by night, and they marched toward the stronghold. When morning came, they looked ahead and saw a countless multitude with ladders and machines for the capturing the stronghold, beginning to attack. When Judah perceived their struggle had begun and that noise of the battle were resounding to heaven with the trumpet blast and the loud shouting, he said to the men of his army, "Fight for our kindred today." He came up behind them with 3 columns, blowing the trumpet and crying out in prayer. When the army of the Timothy realized that it was Maccabees, they fled before him, and he inflicted on them great defeat. About 8,000 of their men fell that day. Then he turned toward Alima and attacked and captured it. He killed every man, took the spoil, and burned it down. From there he moved on and took Chasopho, Maccabees, Bosa, and the other cities of the Gilead. After this event, Timothy assembled another army and camped opposite Laphon on the other side of the Wadi. Judah sent men spy on the camp, and they reported to him all the Gentiles around us had rallied to him, making a very large force. They have also hired Arabians to help them and have camped beyond the Wadi, ready to attack you. So Judah went forward to meet them. As Judah and his army were approaching the flowing Wadi, Timothy said to the officer of his army, "If he cross over to us first, we shall not be able to resist him. He will certainly defeat us. But if he is hesitant and camps on the other side of the river, we will cross over to him and defeat him." But when Judah reached the flowing Wadi, he stationed the official of the people beside it and gave them this order: "Do not allow anyone to encamp, and all must go into battle." He was the first to cross to attack with all the people behind him, and all the Gentiles were crushed before them. They threw away their arms and fled to the temple enclosed at the Ganaim. But Judah's troops captured the city and burned the temple enclosed with all who were in it. So Ganaim was subdued, and Judah met with no resistance. Returned to Jerusalem. Then Judah assembled all the Israelites, great and small, who were in Gilead with their wives and children and their goods, a very large company, to go into the land of the Judah. When they reached Ephron, the large and strong, near fortified city, along the way, they found it impossible to go around it on either the right or the left. They would have the march right through it. But the people in the city shut them out and broke up the gates with stones. Then Judah sent them this people message: "Let us cross your territory in order to reach our own. No one will harm you, we'll only march through." But they would not open to him. So Judah ordered the proclamation to be made in the camp that everyone should take a position where there were. When the men of the army took up their position, he assaulted the city all that day and night, and it was delivered into his hand. He put every man to the sword, leveled the city, took spoil, and passed through it over the slain. Then they crossed the Jordan to Great Plain in front of the Beth shrine. And Judah kept gathering in the stragglers and encouraging the people the whole way until he reached the land of the Judah. They ascended Mount Zion in joy and gladness and sacrificed burnt offering, because not one of them had fallen. They had returned in safety. Joseph and Azariah defeated. In those days, when Judah and Jonathan were in the land of the Gilead, and Simon his brother was in Galilee opposite the Ptolemy. Joseph, son of the Zechariah and Azariah, the leader of the army, heard about the brave deeds and the fighting that they were doing. They said, let us also make a name for ourselves by going out and fighting against the Gentiles around us. They gave order to those of the army who were with them and marched against Jamnia. But Gorgias and his men came out of the city to meet them in battles. Joseph and Azariah were routed and were pursued to the frontier of the Judea, and about 2,000 Israelites fell that day. It was a great setback for the people because they had not obeyed Judas and his brother, thinking that they would do brave deeds. But they were not of the family to whom Israel's deliverance was given. Victory at Hebron and Azotus. The valiant Judah and his brother were greatly honored in all Israel and among all the Gentiles, wherever their name was heard, and the people gathered about them and praised them. Then Judah and his brother went out and attacked the Edomites in the land toward the south. He took Hebron and its village, and he destroyed its stronghold and burned the towers around it. He then set out for the land of the foreigners and passed through Marissa. On that day, some priests fell in battle who had gone out rashly to fight in the desire to do brave deeds. Judah then turned toward the Azotus in the land of the foreigners. He destroyed their altar and burned the carved image of their gods. And after plundering their cities, he returned to the land of the Judah. First Maccabees chapter 6. As King Antiochus passed through the eastern province, he heard that in Persia there was a city around famous for its wealth, its silver and gold. And its temple was very rich, containing gold helmet, breastplate, and weapons left there by the first king of the Greeks, Alexander, son of Philip, king of Macedon. He went therefore and tried to capture and loot the city, but he could not do so, because his plan became known to the people of the city, who rose up in battle against him. So he fled and in great dismay withdrew from there to return to Babylon. While he was in Persia, a messenger brought him news the army that had gone into the land of the Judah had been routed. That Lysias had gone up first with a strong army and been driven back, and the people of Judah had grown strong by reason of the arms, wealth, and abundant spoil taken from the armies they had cut down. That they had pulled down the abomination which he had built upon the altar in Jerusalem, and that they surrounded with high walls both the sanctuary, as it had been before, and his city of the Beth Jor. When the king heard this news, he was astonished and very much shaken, sick with grief because his design had failed. He took to his bed. There he remained many days, assailed by waves of the grief, for he thought he was going to die. So he called in all his friends and said to them, "Sleep has departed from my eyes, and my heart sinks from anxiety. I said to myself, into what tribulation have I come, and with what flood of the sorrow am I now? Yet I was kindly and beloved in my rules. But I now recall the evils I did in Jerusalem when I carried away all the vessels of the silver and gold that were in it, and for no cause gave orders that inhabitants of the Judah be destroyed. I know that this is why these evils have overtaken me, and now I am dying in bitter grief in foreign land." Then he summoned Philip, one of his friends, and put him in charge of his whole kingdom. He gave him his diadem, his robe, and his signet ring, so that he might guide the king's son Antiochus and bring him up to be king. So the king Antiochus died there in 149 years. When Lysias learned that the king was dead, he set up the king's son Antiochus, whom he had reared as a child, to be a king in his place, and he gave him the title Eupator, siege of the citadels. Those in the citadel were hemming Israel in around the sanctuary, continually trying to harm them into strength the Gentiles. And so Judas planned to destroy them and assembled the people to besiege them. So in the 105th years they assembled and besieged the citadels, for which purpose he constructed a platform and siege engines. But some of the besieged escaped, and some renegade Israelites joined them. They went to the king and said, "How long will you fail to justice and to avenge our kindreds? We agreed to serve your father and to follow his orders and obey his edicts. And for this our own people have become our enemies. They have put to death as many of us as they could find and have seized our inheritance. They have acted aggressively not only against us but throughout the whole territories. Look, today they have besieged the citadel in Jerusalem in order to capture it. And they have fortified the sanctuary and the Beth Jor. Unless you act quickly to prevent them, they will do even worse things than this, and you will not be able to stop them." When the king heard this, he was enraged, and he called together all his friends, the officials of his army, and the commanders of the cavalry. Mercenary forces also came to him from other kingdoms and from the island of the seas. His army numbered 100,000 of foot soldiers, 20,000 cavalry, and 32 elephants trained for war. They passed through the Idumea and camped before Beth-Jor. For many days they attacked it. They constructed the siege engines, but the besieged made a sortie and burned these, and they fought bravely. Battle of the Beth Zechariah. Then Judas marched away from the city and moved his camp to Beth Zechariah, opposite the king's camp. The king, rising before dawn, moved his force hastily along the road to the Beth Zechariah, and the troops prepared for the battle and sounded the trumpet. They made the elephant drunk on the juice of the grapes and more berries to get them ready to fight. The beasts were distributed along the fair nexus, each elephant having assigned to it 1,000 men in coat of the mail, with bronze helmet on their heads and 500 picked cavalry. These accompanied the beast wherever it was, wherever it moved, they moved to and never left it. Each elephant was outfitted with a strong wooden tower fastened to it by a harness. Each tower held 3 soldiers who fought from it besides the Indian drivers. The remaining cavalry was stationed on one or the other of the 12 flanks of the army to harass the enemy and to be protected by the phalanxes. When the sun shone on the gold and the bronze shield, the mountain gleamed with their brightness and blazed like flaming torches. Part of the king's army spread out along the height, while some were on the low ground, and they marched forward steadily in good order. All heard the noise of their numbers, the tramp of their marching, and the clang of the arms trembles, for the army was very great and strong. Judah with his army advanced to the fight, and 600 men of the king's army fell. Elijah called the alpha and saw one of the beasts bigger than any of the other and covered with the royal armor, and he thought that the king must be on it. He gave up his life to save his people and win the everlasting name for himself. He dashed courageously up to it in the middle of the phalanxes, killing men right and left so that they parted before him. He ran under the elephant, stabbed it, and killed it. The beast fell to the ground on the top of him, and he died there. But when Judah troops saw the strength of the royal army of the other of the Israel forces, they retreated from them. The siege of the Jerusalem. Some of the king's army went up to the Jerusalem to attack them, and the king established the camps in Judea and at the Mount Zion. He made peace with the people of the Beth-jur, and they evacuated the city because they had no food there to enable them to withstand the siege, for there was a Sabbath year in the land. The king took Beth-jur and stationed a garrison there to hold it. For many days he besieged the sanctuary, setting up the platform and the siege engines, fire throwers, catapult, and mechanical bows for shooting arrows and projectiles. The defender counted by setting up the siege engine of their own and kept up the fight a long time. But there were no provision in the storerooms because it was the 7th year, and the reserves had been eaten up by those who had been rescued from the Gentile and brought to Judea. Few men remained in the sanctuary because the famine was too much for them. The rest scattered each to his own home. Peace treaty. Lysias heard that Philip, whom King Antiochus, before his death, had appointed to train his son Antiochus to be king, had returned from Persia and Media with the army that accompanied the king, and that he was seeking to take over the government. So he hastily decided to withdraw. He said to the king, the leader of the army and the soldier, "We are growing weaker every day. Our provisions are scanty. The place we are besieging is strong, and it is our duty to take care of the affair of the kingdoms. Therefore, let us now come to terms with these people and make peace with them and all their nations. Let us grant them freedom to live according to their own laws as formerly. It was on account of their laws, which we abolished, that they became enraged and did all these things." The proposal pleased the king and the leaders. He sent peace terms to the Jews, and they accepted. So the king and the leaders swore an oath to them, and on these terms the Jews evacuated the fortification. But when the king entered the Mount Zion and saw how the place was fortified, he broke the oath he had sworn and gave orders to tear down the encircling wall. Then he departed in haste and returned to Antioch, where he found Philip in control of the city. He fought against him and took the city by force. First Maccabees chapter 7, expedition of the Bechites and Archimos. In the 151st year, Demetrius, son of the Seleucus, set out from the Rome, arrived with a few men at the coastal city, and began to rule there. As he was entering the royal palace, his ancestors, the soldiers, seized Antiochus and Lysias to bring them to him. When he was informed of this, he said, "Do not show me their faces." So the soldier killed them, and Demetrius assumed the royal thrones. Then all the lawless men and the renegade of the Israel came to him. They were led by Alcimos, who desired to be high priest. They made this accusation to the king against the people. "Judah and his brother have destroyed all your friends and have driven us out of our land." So now send the men whom you trust to go and see all the destruction Judas has wrought on us and on the king's territories, and let him punish them and all their supporters. So the king chose Maccabees, one of the king of France, who ruled the province of the west of the Euphrates, a great man in the kingdom and faithful to the king. He sent him and renegade Alcimos, to whom he granted the high priesthood with orders to take revenge on Israelites. They set out and, on arriving in the land of the Judah with a great army, sent a messenger who spoke deceitfully to Judas and his brother in peaceful terms. But these paid no attention to their words, seeing that they had come with great armies. A group of the scribes, however, gathered about the Alchemos and the Maccabees to ask for a just agreement. The Hasidians were at first among the Israelites to seek peace with them, for they said, a priest of the line of the Aaron has come with the army, and he will not do us any wrong. He spoke with them peacefully and swore to them, we will not seek to injure you or your friends. So they trusted him, but he arrested 60 of them and killed them in one day, according to the words that he wrote. The flesh of the young faithful and their blood they had spilled all around about Jerusalem, and no one was left to bury them. Then fear and the dread of them came upon all the people, who said, there is no truth or justice among them. They violated the agreement and oaths that they swore. But Maccabees withdrew from Jerusalem and camped in the Bet-Jais. He had many of the men who deserted to him arrested, and some of the people. He killed them and threw them into a great cistern. He handed the province over to Alchemos, leaving troops to help him, while he himself returned to the king. Alchemos strove to maintain his high priesthood. And all those who were troubling the people gathered about him. They took possession of the land of the Judah and caused great distress in Israel. When Judah saw all the evil that Alcimos and those with him were bringing upon the Israelites, even more than the Gentile had, he went about the borders of the Judea and took revenge on the men who had deserted, preventing them from going out into the countries. But when Alchemos saw that Judah and his followers were gaining strength and realized that he could not resist them, he returned to the king and accused them of grave crimes. Defeat of the Nicanor. Then the king sent Nicanor, one of his honored officials, who was a bitter enemy of the Israel, with orders to destroy the people. Nicanor came to Jerusalem with a rising force and deceitfully sent to Judah and his brother the peaceful message. Let there be no fight between me and you. I will come with a few men to meet you face to face in peace. So he came to Judah, and they greeted one another peaceably, but Judah's enemies were prepared to seize him. When he became aware that Nicanor had come to him with deceit in mind, Judah was afraid of him and would not meet him again. When Nicanor saw that his plan had been discovered, he went out to fight Judah near Kapara Salama. About 500 men of the Nicanor army fell, the rest fled to the city of David. After this, Nicanor went up to the mountain Zion. Some of the priests from the sanctuary and some of the elders of the people came out to greet him peaceably and to show him the burnt offering that was being sacrificed for the king. But he mocked and ridiculed them, defied them, and spoke arrogantly. In a rage, he swore, if Judah and his army are not delivered to me at once, when I will return victorious, I will burn this temple down. He went away in great anguish. The priests, however, went in and stood before the altar and the sanctuary. They wept and said, You have chosen this house to bear your name, to be a house of the prayer and the supplication for your peoples. Take a revenge on this man and his army, and let them fall by the sword. Remember their blasphemies, and do not let them continue. Nicanor left Jerusalem and camped at the Beth Horon, where the Syrian army joined him. But Judas camped in Adasa with 3,000 men. Here Judas uttered this prayer. When they who were sent by the king blasphemed, your angel went out and killed 185,000 of them. In the same way, Christ the army before us today, and let the rest know that Nicanor spoke wickedly against your sanctuary. Judge him according to his wickedness. The army met in battle on the 13th day of the month Adar. Nicanor's army was crushed, and he himself was the first to fall in the battle. When his army saw that Nicanor had fallen, they threw down their weapons and fled. The Jews pursued them a day's journey from Adasa to near Gazara, blowing the trumpet behind them as signals. From all the surrounding villages of the Judea, people came out and overflanked them. They turned them back, and all the enemies fell by the sword. Not a single one escaped. Then the Jews collected the spoil and burned. They cut off the Nicanor head and his right arm, which he had lifted up so arrogantly. These they brought and displayed in the sight of the Jerusalem. The people rejoiced greatly and observed that day as day of the much joy. They decreed that it should be observed every year on the 13th of Adar. And so for a few days the land of the Judah has at rest. First Maccabees chapter 8, the eulogy of the Romans. Judah had heard of the reputation of the Romans. They were valiant fighters and acted amiably to all who took their side. They established a friendly alliance with all who applied to them. He was also told of their battles and the brave deeds that they performed against the Gauls, conquering them and forcing them to pay tribute, and what they did in Spain to get possession of the silver and gold mines there. By planning and persistence, they subjugated the whole region, although it was very remote from their own. They also subjugated the kings who had come against them from the far corner of the earth until they crushed them and inflicted on them severe defeat. The rest paid tribute to them every year. Philip and Perseus, king of the Macedonians, and the others who opposed them in battle, they overran and subjugated. Antiochus, the great king of the Asia, who fought against them with 120 elephants and with cavalry and chariot and a very great army, was defeated by them. They took him alive and obliged him and the king who succeeded him to pay a heavy tribute, to give hostage and to seize. Lycia, Mysia, and Lydia from among the best provinces, the Romans took these from him and gave them to King Eumenes. When the Greeks planned to come and destroy them, the Romans discovered it, sent against the Greeks a single general who made war on them. Many were wounded and fell, and the Romans took their wives and children captive. They plundered them, took possession of their land, tore down their stronghold, and reduced them to slavery even to this day. All the other kingdoms and islands that had ever opposed them, they destroyed and enslaved. With their friends, however, and those who relied on them, they maintained friendship. They subjugated kings both near and far, and all who heard of their fames were afraid of them. Those whom they wished to help and to make kings, they make kings, and those whom they wished, they depose, and they were greatly exalted. Yet with all this, none of them put on diadem or wore purple as a display of the grandeur. But they made for themselves a senate chambers, and every day 320 men took counsel, deliberating on all that concerned the people and their well-being. They entrusted their government to one man every year to rule over their entire land, and they all obeyed that one, and there is no envy or jealousy among them. Treaty with the Romans. So Judas chose Eupolemus, son of John, son of the Archos, and Jason, son of the Arusa, and sent them to Rome to establish a friendship and alliance with them. We did this to lift the yoke from Israel, for it was obvious that the kingdom of the Greeks was subjecting them to slavery. After making a very long journey to Rome, the envoys entered the Senate chambers and spoke as follows. Judas called Maccabees and his brother with the Jewish people had sent us to you to establish alliance and peace with you, and to be enrolled among your allies and friends. The proposal pleased the Romans. And this is a copy of the reply they inscribed on bronze tablet and sent to Jerusalem to remain there with the Jews as a record of the peace and alliance. May it be well with the Roman and the Jewish nation at sea and on land forever. May sword and enemy be far from them. But if war is first made on Rome or any of its allies in any of their dominions, the Jewish nation will fight along with them wholeheartedly, as the occasion shall demand. And to those who wage war, they shall not give or provide grain, weapons, money, or ship as seems best to Rome. They shall fulfill their obligation without receiving any recompense. In the same way, if war is made first on the Jewish nation, the Romans will fight along with them willingly, as the occasion shall demand. And to those who attack them, there shall not be given grains, weapons, money, or ship as seems best to Rome. They shall fulfill their obligation without deception. On these terms, the Romans had made an agreement with the Jewish peoples. But if both parties hereafter agree to add or take away anything, they shall do as they choose, and whatever they shall add or take away shall be valid. Moreover, concerning the wrongs that King Demetrius is doing to them, you have written to him thus: Why have you made your yoke heavy upon your friends and allies, the Jews? If they petition against you again, we will enforce justice and make war on you by sea and land. First Maccabees chapter 9, Death of Judas. When Demetrius heard that Nicanor and his army has fallen in battle, he again sent Bachidas and Alcimos into the land of the Judah, along with the right wing of his army. They took the road to Galilee, and camping opposite the ascent at the Arbela, they captured it and killed many people. In the first month of the 152nd year, they encamped against Jerusalem. Then they set out for Berea with 20,000 men and 2,000 cavalry. Judas with 3,000 picked men had camped at Elasa. When they saw the great number of the troops, they were very much afraid, and many slipped away from the camp until 1,800 of them remained. When Judah saw that his army was melting away just as the battle was imminent, he was broken-hearted because he had no time to gather them together. In spite of his discouragement, he said to those who remained, "Let us go forward to meet our enemies. Perhaps we can put up a good fight against them." They tried to dissuade him, saying, "We certainly cannot. Let us save our own lives now and come back with our kindred and then fight against them. Now we are too few." But Judah said, "Far be it from me to do such a thing as to flee from them. If our time has come, let us die bravely for our kindred and not leave a stain upon our honors." Then the army of the Maccabees moved out of the camp and took its position for combat. The cavalry were divided into two squadrons, and the slinger and the archers came upon ahead of the army, and in front of the line were all the best warriors. Maccabees was on the right wing. Flanked by the two squadrons, the phalanx attacked as they blew their trumpets. Those who were on Judah's side also blew their trumpets. The earth shook with the noise of the armies, and the battle raged from the morning until evening. When Judah saw that Maccabees was on the right with the main force of his army, all the most stout-hearted rallied to him, and the right wing was crushed. Judah pursued them as far as the mountain slopes. But when those on the left wing saw that the right wing was crushed, they closed in behind Judah and those with him. The battle became intense, and many on both sides fell wounded. Then Judah fell and the rest fled. Jonathan and Simon took their brother Judah and buried him in the tomb of their ancestor at Modian. All Israel wept for him with great lamentation. They mourned for him many days, and they said, "How the mighty one has fallen, the Savior of Israel." The other act of Judah, his battles, the brave deeds he performed, and his greatness have not been recorded, but they were very many. Jonathan succeeded Judah. After the death of Judah, the lorries raised their heads in every part of Israel, and all kinds of evildoers appeared. In those days there was a very great famine, and the country deserted to them. Maccabees chose renegade and made them master of the countries. These sought out and hunted down the friends of Judah and brought them to Maccabees, who punished and derided them. There was great tribulation in Israel, the like of which had not been since the time prophet ceased to appear among them. Then the old friends of Judah came together and said to Jonathan, "Ever since your brother Judah died, there has been no one like him to lead us against our enemies, both Maccabees and those of our nation who are hostile to us. Now therefore we have chosen you today to be our ruler and leader in his place, to fight our battles." From that moment Jonathan accepted the leadership and took the place of Judah his brother. Maccabees pursues Jonathan. When Maccabees learned of it, he sought to kill him. But Jonathan and his brother Simon and all who were with him discovered this, and they fled to the wilderness of the Tekoa and camped by the walls of the pool of the Asphar. Jonathan sent his brother as leader of the convoy to implore his friend the Nabateans to let them deposit with them their great quantity of baggage. But the tribe of the Jambri from Medebra made a raid and seized the carried of John and everything he had. After this, word was brought to the Jonathan and his brother Simon. The tribe of the Zambri are celebrating a great wedding. And with the Raja escort, they bring the bride, the daughter of one of the great prince of the Canaan from Nadabas. Remembering the blood of the John, their brother, they went up and hid themselves on the cover of the mountain. As they watched, there appeared noisy throngs with much baggage. Then the bridegroom and his friend and kinsmen had come out to meet them with the tambourine and the musician with their instruments. Jonathan and his party rose up against them from their ambush and killed them. Many fell wounded. The rest fled toward the mountain. All their spoil were taken. Thus the wedding was turned into the mourning and the sound of the music into lamentation. Having taken their revenge for the blood of their brother, they returned to the marshes of the Jordan. When Bachides heard of it, he came on the Sabbath to the bank of the Jordan with the rising force. Then Jonathan said to his companion, "Let us rise up now and fight for our lives, for today is not like yesterday and the day before. The battle is before us, behind us are the war of the Jordan on either side of us. Mercy and thicket, there is no way of escape. Cry out now to the heavens so that you may be delivered from the hands of our enemies." When they joined the battle, Jonathan raised his hand to strike Bachides, but Bachides backed away from him. Jonathan and those with him jumped into the Jordan and swam across to the other side, but the enemy did not pursue them across the Jordan. About 1,000 men on Bachides' side fell that day. On returning to Jerusalem, Bachides built a stronghold in Judea, the Jericho fortress, as well as Emmanuel, Beth-horon, Bethel, Timnath, Pheraton, and Taphons, with high wall and gate and bars. In each he put garrison to harass Israel. He fortified the city of the Beth-jur, Gazara, and the citadel, and put troops in them and the store of the provisions. He took as a hostage the son of the leading people of the country and put them in custody in the citadel at Jerusalem. In the 153rd year, in the second month, Alcimos ordered the wall of the inner court of the sanctuary to be torn down, thus destroying the work of the prophet, but he only began to tear it down. Just at that time, Alcimos was stricken and his work was interrupted. His mouth was closed and he was paralyzed, so that he could no longer utter a word or give orders concerning his household. Alcimos died in great agony at that time. Seeing that Alcimos was dead, Bachides returned to the king, and the land of the Judah was at rest for 2 years. Then all the lords took counsel and said, "Jonathan and those with him are living in peace and security. Now then, let us have Bachides return, and he will capture all of them in a single night." So they went and took counsel with him. When Bachides was setting out with the rising force, he sent letters secretly to all his allies in Judea, telling them to seize Jonathan and his companion. They were not able to do this, however, because their plan became known. In fact, Jonathan's men seized about 50 of them, the men of the country who were leaders in the conspiracy, and put them to death. Then Jonathan and those with him, along with Simon, withdrew to the Beth-basi in the wilderness. He rebuilt its ruin and fortified it. When Bachides learned of this, he gathered together his whole force and sent the word to those who were in Judea. He came and camped before Beth-basi, and constructing siege engines, he fought against it for many days. Leaving his brother Simon in the city, Jonathan, accompanied by a small group of the men, went out into the countryside. He struck down Odomerah and his kindred and the tribe of the Pharisees in their encampment. These men had begun to attack and they were going up with their forces. Simon and those with them then separated forth from the city and set fire to the siege engines. They caused him great distress because the enterprise he had planned was in vain. He was enraged with the lawless men who had advised him to invade the province. He killed many of them and resolved to return to his own countries. Jonathan learned of this and sent the ambassadors to agree on peace with him and to obtain the release of the prisoners. He agreed to it as Jonathan asked. He swore on oath to him that he would never try to him any harm for the rest of his life. And he released to him the prisoner he had previously taken from the land of the Judah. Thereupon he returned to his own land and never came into their territory again. Then the sword ceased from Israel. Jonathan settled in the Michmash. He began to judge the people and he eliminated the renegade from Israel. First, Maccabees chapter 10. Jonathan becomes a high priest. In the 160 years, Alexander Epiphanes, son of the Antiochus, came up and took Ptolemais. They accepted him as king and he began to reign there. When King Demetrius heard it, he mustered a very large army and marched out to engage him in battle. Demetrius sent a letter to Jonathan written in peaceful terms to exhort him. For he said, "Let us be the first to make peace with him before he makes peace with Alexander against us. Since he will remember all the wrongs we have done to him, his brother, and his nation." So Demetrius authorized him to gather an army and procure arms as his allies. And he ordered that the hostage in the citadel be released to him. Accordingly, Jonathan went to Jerusalem and read the letter to all the people and to those who were in the citadels. They were struck with fear when they heard that the king had given him authority to gather an army. Those in the citadel released the hostage to Jonathan, and he gave them back to their parents. Thereafter, Jonathan dwelt in Jerusalem and began to rebuild and restore the city. He ordered those doing the work to build the walls and to encircle Mount Zion with the scale stone for its fortification, and they did so. The foreigner in the strongholds that Batidas had built took a flight. All of them left their places and returned to their own lands. Only in Bethjuro did some remain of those who had abandoned the law and the commandments, for it was a place of the refuge. King Alexander heard of the promise that Demetrius had made to Jonathan. He was also told of the battle and the brave deeds of the Jonathan and his brother and of the trouble that they had endured. He said, "Surely ever find another man like him. Let us now make him our friends and allies." So he sent Jonathan a letter written in these terms. King Alexander sent a greeting to his brother Jonathan. "We have heard of you that you are mighty warrior and worthy to be our friends. We have therefore appointed you today to be high priest of your nation. You are to be called the king friends, and you are to look after our interest and preserve the friendship with us." He also sent him a purple robe and the crown of the gold. Jonathan put on the sacred vestment in the 7th month of the 160th year at the feast of the booths, and he gathered an army and procured many weapons. A letter from Demetrius to Jonathan. When Demetrius heard of these things, he was distressed and said, "Why have we allowed Alexander to get ahead of us by gaining the friendship of the Jews and thus strengthen himself? I too will write them encouraging words and offer honors and gifts so that they may support me." So he sent them this message: "King Demetrius sends a greeting to the Jewish nation. You have heard how you have kept the treaty with us and continued in our friendship and not gone over to our enemies, and we are glad. Continue therefore to keep faith with us, and we will reward you with favors in return for what you do in our behalf. We will grant you many exemptions and will bestow gifts on you. Now free you and exempt all the Jews from the tribute, the salt tax, and the crown levies. Instead of collecting the third of the grain and the half of the fruit of the trees that should be my share, I renounce the right from this day forward. Neither now nor in the future will I collect them from the land of the Judah or from the three districts and next seat from Samaria. Let Jerusalem and her territory, her tithe and her tolls be sacred and free from tax. I also yield my authority over citadel in Jerusalem, and I transfer it to high priest, that he may put in it such men as he shall choose to guard it. Every Jew who has been carried into captivity from the land of the Judah into any part of my kingdom, I set at liberty without ransom. And let all the taxes, even those on their cattle, be cancelled. Let all feast days, Sabbaths, new moon, and festival, appointed days, and the 3 days that precede each feast day, and the 3 days that follow be days of the immunity and exemption for all Jews in my kingdom. No one will have authority to exact the payment from them or to harass any of them in any matters. Let 30,000 Jews be enrolled in king's army, and allowance be given them, as is due to all king's soldiers. Let some of them be stationed in king's principal strongholds, and of these let some be given position of the trust in the affair of the kingdom. Let their superior and their rulers be chosen from among them, and let them follow their own laws, and the king has commanded in the land of the Judah. Let 3 districts that have been added to Judea from province of the Samaria be annexed to the Judea, so that they may be under one rule and obey no other authority than the high priest. Ptolemais and its confines I give as a present to the sanctuary in Jerusalem for the necessary expenses of the sanctuaries. I make a yearly personal grant of the 15,000 silver shekel out of the royal revenues taken from appropriate places. All the additional funds that officials did not hand over as they had done in the first year shall henceforth be handed over for the service of the temple. Moreover, the dues of the 5,000 silver shekels that used to be taken from the revenue of the sanctuary every year shall be cancelled, since these funds belong to priests who perform the services. All who take refuge in the temple of the Jerusalem or in any of the precincts because of the money they owe the king or because of any other debt shall be released, together with all goods they possess in my kingdom. The cost of the rebuilding and restoring the structure of the sanctuary shall be covered out of the royal revenue. When Jonathan and the people heard these words, they neither believed nor accepted them, for they remembered the great evil that Demetrius had done in Israel, and the great tribulation he had brought upon them. They therefore decided in favor of Alexander, for he had been the first to address them peaceably, and they remained his allies for the rest of his life. Then King Alexander gathered together a large army and encamped opposite Demetrius. The two kings joined the battle, and when the army of the Demetrius fled, Alexander pursued him and overpowered his soldiers. He pressed the battle hard until sunset, and Demetrius fell that day. Treaty of the Ptolemy and Alexander. Alexander sent the ambassador to Ptolemy, king of Egypt, with this message. Now that I have returned to my realm, taken my seat on the throne of my ancestors, and established my rule by crushing Demetrius and gained control of my countries. For I engaged him in battle, he and his army were crushed by us, and we assumed his royal throne. Let us now establish a friendship with each other. Give me now your daughter for my wife, and as your son-in-law, I will give to you and to her gift worthy of you. King Ptolemy answered in these words, Happy the day on which you return to the land of your ancestor and took your seat on the royal throne. I will do for you what you have written, but meet me in Ptolemais, so that we may see each other, and I'll become your father-in-law as you have proposed. So Ptolemy with his daughter Cleopatra set out from Egypt and came to Ptolemais in the 162nd year. There King Alexander met him, and Ptolemy gave him his daughter Cleopatra in marriage. Their wedding was celebrated at the Ptolemais with great splendor according to the custom of the kings. King Alexander also wrote to Jonathan to come and meet him. So he went with a pomp to Ptolemais, where he met the king and gave them and their friends silver and gold and many gifts, and thus won their favor. Some villainous men of the Israel transgressed of the law, united against him to accuse him, but the king paid no heed to them. The king ordered Jonathan to be divested of his garment and to be clothed in a royal purple, and so it was done. The king also had him seated at his side. He said to his magistrates, Go with him to the center of the city and make a proclamation that no one is to bring charge against him on any ground or be troublesome to him for any reason. When he accused, so the honor paid him according to king proclamation, and him clothed in purple, they all fled. And so the king honored him, enrolling him among his chief friends, and he made him governor and the chief of the province. So Jonathan returned in peace and happiness to Jerusalem. Jonathan defeats Apollonius. In the 165th year, Demetrius, son of the Demetrius, came from the Crete to land of his ancestors. When the king Alexander heard of it, he was greatly troubled and returned to Antioch. Demetrius set Apollonius over Coelesyria. Having gathered a large army, Apollonius encamped at Jamnia. From there he sent this message to Jonathan the high priest. You are the only one who resists us. I am wrapped at and put to shame on your account. Why are you exercising authority against us in the mountains? If you have a confidence in your forces, come down now to us in the plain, and let us test each other's strength there, for the forces of the cities are on my side. Inquire and find out who I am and who the others are who are helping me. People are saying that you cannot make a stand against us because your ancestors were twice put to flight in their own land. Now you too will be unable to withstand our cavalry and such a force as this in the plain, where there is not stone or a pebble and a place to flee. When Jonathan heard the message of the Apollonius, he was provoked. Choosing 10,000 men, he set out from Jerusalem, and Simon his brother joined him to help him. He encamped near Joppa, but the people of the city shut him out because Apollonius had a garrison in Joppa when they attacked it. The people of the city became afraid and opened the gate, and so Jonathan took possession of Joppa. When Apollonius heard of it, he drew up the 3,000 cavalry and a large force of the infantry. He marched toward the Azotus as though he was going on truce, but at the same time he was advancing into the plain, because he had such a large number of the cavalry to rely on. Jonathan pursued him toward the Azotus, and the army engaged in battles. Apollonius, however, had left 1,000 cavalry in hiding behind them. Jonathan discovered that there was an ambush behind him. His army was surrounded. From morning until evening, they showered his troops with arrows. But his troops held their ground as Jonathan had commanded, while the enemy horses became tired out. Then Simon brought forward his forces and engaged the phalanxes in battle. Since the cavalry were exhausted, the phalanx was crushed by him and fled. While the cavalry too were scattered over the plain, they fled the Azotus and entered the Beth-Dagon, the temple of their idol, to save themselves. But Jonathan burned and plundered the Azotus with its neighboring towns and destroyed by fire both the temple of the Dagon and those who had taken refuge in it. Those who fell by the sword, together with those who were burned alive, came to about 8,000. Then Jonathan left there and encamped at the Ascalon, and the people of that city came out to meet him with great pomp. Jonathan and those with him then returned to Jerusalem with much spoil. When the king Alexander heard of this event, he accorded new honors to Jonathan. He sent him a gold buckle such as is usually given to kinsmen. He also gave him Ekron and all his territory as a possession. First Maccabees chapter 11, alliance of the Ptolemy and Demetrius II. Then the king of Egypt gathered the forces as numerous as the sand of the seashore and many ships, and he sought by deceit to take Alexander's kingdom and add it to his own. He set up for Syria with peaceful words, and the people in the city opened their gate to welcome him, as the king Alexander had ordered them to do, since Ptolemy was his father-in-law. But when Ptolemy entered the city, he stationed a garrison of troops in each one. As they neared the Azotus, they showed him the temple of the Dagon destroyed by fire. Azotus and its suburbs demolished, the corpses lying about, and the charred body of those burned in the walls, for they had heaped them up along his route. They told the king what Jonathan had done in order to denigrate him, but the king said nothing. Jonathan met the king with pomp at the Joppa, and they greeted each other and spent the night there. Jonathan accompanied the king as far as the river called the Aloderos, and then returned to Jerusalem. And so King Ptolemy took possession of the city along the sea coast as far as Seleucia by the sea, plotting evil scheme against Alexander all the while. He sent the ambassador to King Demetrius, saying, "Come, let us make a covenant with each other. I will give you my daughter whom Alexander has married, and you shall reign over your father's kingdoms. I regret that I gave him my daughter, for he has sought to kill me." He was criticizing Alexander, however, because he coveted his kingdom. After taking his daughter away, Ptolemy gave her to the Demetrius and broke with Alexander. The enmity between them was now evident. Then Ptolemy entered Antioch and assumed the crown of Asia. Thus he set upon his head two crowns, that of Egypt and that of Asia. Now King Alexander was in Cilicia at that time, because the people of the region had revolted. When Alexander heard the news, he came against Ptolemy in battle. Ptolemy marched out and met him with a strong force and routed him. When Alexander fled to Arabia to seek protection, King Ptolemy was triumphant. Jabdiel the Arabian cut off Alexander's head and sent it to the Ptolemies. But 3 days later, King Ptolemy himself died, and his troops in the strongholds were killed by the inhabitants of the strongholds. Then Demetrius became king in the 167th year. Alliance of the Jonathan and Demetrius II. In those days, Jonathan gathered together in the people of the Judea to attack the citadel in Jerusalem, and they set up the many siege engines against it. But some transgressors of the law, enemy of their own nation, went to the king and informed him that Jonathan was besieging the citadels. When Demetrius heard this, he was enraged, and as soon as he heard it, he set out and came to Ptolemais. He wrote to the Jonathan to discontinue the siege and to meet him for conference at the Ptolemais as soon as possible. On hearing this, Jonathan ordered the siege of the continued. He selected some elder and the priest of the Israel and put himself at risk. Taking with him silver, gold, and apparel, and many other presents, he went to the king at the Ptolemais, and found favor with him. Although certain renegade of his own nation kept on bringing charge against him, the king treated him just as his predecessors had done and exalted him in the presence of all his friends. He confirmed him in the high priesthood and in other honors he had previously held, and had him enrolled among his chief friends. Jonathan asked the king to exempt Judea and the 3 districts of the Samaria from tribute, promising him in return 300 talents. The king agreed and wrote a letter to Jonathan about all these matters as follows. King Demetrius sends greeting to his brother Jonathan and to the Jewish nation. We are sending you for your information a copy of the letter that we wrote to the Lasthenes, our kinsman, concerning you. King Demetrius sends greeting to his father Lasthenes. Upon the Jewish nation who are our friends and observe their obligation to us, we have decided to bestow benefit because of goodwill they show us. Therefore, we confirm the possession not only of the territory of the Judea, but also of the 3 districts of the Alpha, Lemma, Lydia, and Lamatine. These districts, together with all the dependencies, are hereby transferred from Samaria to Judea for those who offer sacrifice in Jerusalem in lieu of the royal taxes the king used to receive yearly from produce of the earth and trees. From payment of the other things that would henceforth be due to us, namely the tithe and the taxes, as well as the salt tax and the crown tax, from all these we grant them release. Henceforth and forever not one of these provisions shall ever be revoked. See to it, therefore, that a copy of these instructions be made and given to Jonathan. Let it be displayed on the holy mountain in a conspicuous place. The intrigue of the trifle. When the king Demetrius saw that land was peaceful under his rule and that he had no opposition, he dismissed his entire army, each to his own home, except the foreign troops which he had hired from the island of the nations. So all the soldiers he had served under his predecessors became hostile to him. When a certain trifle who had previously supported Alexander saw that all the troops were grumbling against Demetrius, he went to Imaluke the Arabian, who was raising Alexander's young son Antiochus. Tryphon kept urging Imalchus to hand over the boy to him so that he might succeed his father as king. He told him of all that Demetrius had done and of the hostility his soldiers had for him, and he remained there for many days. Jonathan aged Demetrius too. Meanwhile, Jonathan sent the request to the king Demetrius to withdraw the troops in the citadel from the Jerusalem and from the other strongholds, for they were constantly waging war on Israel. Demetrius in turn sent this word to the Jonathan, "I do not only this for you and your nation, but I will greatly honor you and your nation when I found the opportunities. Now therefore you will do well to send men to fight for me, because all my troops have revolted." So Jonathan sent 3,000 good fighting men to him at Antioch. When they came to king, he was delighted over their arrivals. The populace, 120,000 strong, massed in the center of the city in the attempt to kill the kings. So the king took refuge in the palace, while the populace gained control of the main street of the city and prepared for battles. Then the king called the Jewish force to his aid. They all rallied around him and spread out through the city. On that day they killed about 100,000 in the city. At the same time, they set the city on fire and took much spoil. Thus they saved the king. When the populace saw that the Jewish force controlled the city, they lost courage and cried out to the king in the supplication, "Extend the hand of the friendship to us and make the Jews stop attacking us and the city." So they threw down their weapons and made peace. They used to gain honor in the eye of the king and all the subjects, and they became renowned throughout his kingdom. Finally, they returned to Jerusalem with much plunder. But when King Demetrius was sure of his royal throne and the land was peaceful under his rules, he broke all his promise and became estranged from Jonathan. Instead of repaying Jonathan for all the favors he had received from him, he caused him much distress. Alliance of Jonathan and Antiochus 5. After this, Tryphon returned and brought with him the young boy Antiochus, who became king and put on the diadem. All the soldiers whom Demetrius had destroyed rallied around Antiochus and fought against Demetrius, who was looted and fled. Tryphon captured the elephant and occupied Antioch. Then the young Antiochus wrote to Jonathan, "I confirm you in the high priesthood and appoint you ruler over the 4 districts, and to be one of the king's friends." He also sent him gold dishes and table service, gave him the right to drink from the gold cups, to dress in royal purple, and to wear a gold buckle. Likewise, he made Jonathan's brother Simon governor of the region from the ladder of the Tyre to the border of the Egypt. Campaign of the Jonathan and Simon. Jonathan set out and traveled through the province of the west of the Euphrates and its cities, and all the force of the Syria espoused his cause as allies. When he arrived at Ascalon, the citizens welcomed him with pomp. But when he set out for Gaza, the people of the Gaza shut him out, so he besieged and burned and plundered its suburbs. Then the people of the Gaza appealed to the Jonathan, and he granted them terms of the peace. He took the sons of their leader as hostages and sent them to the Jerusalem. He then traveled on through the province as far as Damascus. Jonathan heard that the general of the Demetrius had come with a strong force to the Gadis in Galilee, intending to remove him from office. So we went to meet them, leaving his brother Simon in the province. Simon encamped against Beth-Jor, attacked it for many days, and shut in the inhabitants. They appealed to him, and he granted them terms of peace. He expelled them from the city, took possession of it. He put a garrison there. Meanwhile, Jonathan and his army pitched their camp near the wall of the Gennesaret. And at daybreak, they went to the plain of the Hazor. There the army of the foreigner met him on the plain, having first detached an ambush in the mountains. This army mounted a frontal attack. Then those in ambush rose out of their place and joined in the battle. All of the Jonathan men fled. No one stayed except the army commanders Matthias, son of the Absalom, and Judah, son of Chalphas. Jonathan threw his clothes, threw dust on his head, and prayed. Then he went back to the battle and routed them, and they fled. Those of his men who were running away saw it and returned to him, and with him they pursued the enemy as spies. They camped in Kadesh, and there they encamped. About 3,000 of the foreign troops fell on that day. Then Jonathan returned to Jerusalem. First Maccabees chapter 12, alliance with Rome and Sparta. When the Jonathan saw that the time was right, he chose men and sent them to Rome to confirm and renew the friendship with the Romans. He also sent a letter to the Spartans and other praise to the same effect. After reaching Rome, the men entered the Senate chamber and said, "The high priest Jonathan and the Jewish people have sent us to renew the friendship and the alliance of the earlier time with them." The Romans gave them letters addressed to the authorities in various places with the request to provide them with the safe conduct of the land of the Judah. This is a copy of the letter that Jonathan wrote to the Spartans. Jonathan, high priest, the senator of the nation, the priest, the rest of the Jewish people sent the greeting to their brother in Spartans. Long ago, a letter was sent to high priest Onias from Arius, who then reigned over you, stating that you are our brother, as the attached copy shows. Onias welcomed the envoy with honor and received the letter, which spoke clearly of the alliance and the friendship. Though we have no need of these things, since we have for our encouragement the holy books that are in our possession. We have ventured to send the words to you for renewal of brotherhood and friendship. Lest we became strange to you, a long time has passed since you sent your message to us. We on your part have unceasingly remembered you in the sacrifice and the prayer that we offer on our feast and at the appropriate days, as it is right and proper to remember brothers. We likewise rejoice in your renown. But many tribulations and many wars have beset us, and the kings around us have attacked us. We did not wish to be troublesome to you and to the rest of our allies and friends in these wars. For we have the help of the heaven for our support, and we have been saved from our enemies, and our enemies have been humbled. So we have chosen Numenius, son of Antiochus, and Antiparos, son of Jason, and we have sent them to the Romans to renew with them the friendship and the alliance of the earlier time. We have also ordered them to come to you and greet you and to deliver to you our letters concerning the renewal of our brotherhoods. Therefore, kindly send us an answer on this matter. This is a copy of the letter that they sent to Onias. Arius, king of the Spartans, sends the greeting of the Onias, the high priest. A document has been found stating that the Spartans and the Jews are brothers and that they are of the family of the Abraham. Now that we have learned this, kindly write to us about your welfare. We, for our part, declare to you that your animals and your possession are ours, and ours are yours. We have therefore given orders that you should be told of this. More campaign of the Jonathan and Simon. Then Jonathan heard that the official of the Demetrius had returned to attack him with a strong army than before. So he set out from Jerusalem and met them in territory of the Hamas, giving them no opportunity to enter his province. The spy he had sent into the camp came back and reported to him that the enemy were preparing to attack them that night. Therefore, when the sun set, Jonathan ordered his men to keep watch with their weapons at the ready for battles throughout the night, and he set the outposts around the camp. When the enemy heard that Jonathan and his men were ready for battle, their hearts sank with fear and dread. They lighted up fires in the camp and then withdrew. But because Jonathan and his men were watching the campfires burning, they did not know until the morning what had happened. Then Jonathan pursued them, but he could not overtake them, for they had crossed the river Euphrates. So Jonathan turned aside against the Arabians who are called the Javatins, and he struck them down and plundered them. Then he broke camp, marched on toward Damascus, and traveled through the whole region. Simon also set out and traveled as far as Ascalon and its neighboring strongholds. He then turned to Joppa and took it by surprise. For he heard that its people intend to hand over the stronghold to the supporters of Demetrius. He left the garrison there to guard it. When Jonathan returned, he assembled the elders of the people, and with them he made the plan for the building strongholds in Judea, for making the walls of the Jerusalem still higher, and for erecting a high barrier between the citadel and the city, to separate it from the city and isolate it, so that its garrison could neither buy nor sell. The people therefore gathered together to build up the city, for part of the wall of the eastern valley had collapsed, and Jonathan repaired the corrupt called Japhet-Netah. Simon likewise built up the Adida in the Shaphalas, and fortified it by installing gates and bars. Capture of Jonathan. Then Trypho sought to become king of Asia, assumed the diadem, and to do violence to King Antiochus. But he is afraid that Jonathan would not permit him, but would fight against him. Looking for a way to seize and kill him, he set out and camped at Beth-shan. Jonathan marched out to meet him with the 40,000 picked fighting men and camped at Beth-shan. But when Trypho saw that Jonathan had arrived with the large army, he was afraid to do him violence. Instead, he received him with honor, introduced him to all his friends, and gave him presents. He also ordered his friend and the soldier to obey him as they would himself. Then he said to Jonathan, "Why have you put all these people to so much trouble when ye are not at war? Now pick out a few men to stay with you, send the rest up to their homes, and then come with me to Ptolemais. I'll hand it over to you together with our strongholds and the remaining troops, as well as all the officials. Then I will turn back and go home. That is why I came here." Jonathan trusted him and did as he said. He dismissed his troops, and they returned to the land of the Judah. But he kept with him 3,000 men, of whom he left 2,000 in Galilee, while 1,000 accompanied him. Then as soon as Jonathan entered Ptolemais, the people of the Ptolemais closed the gate after seizing him. All who had entered with him they killed with the sword. Then Trypho sent the soldiers and the cavalry to Galilee and the great plain to destroy all Jonathan's men. This, upon learning that Jonathan had been captured and killed along with his companion, encouraged one another and went out in close formation, ready to fight. As their pursuers saw that they were ready to fight for their lives, they turned back. Thus all Jonathan's men came safely into the land of the Judah. They mourned Jonathan and those who were with him. They were in great fear, and all Israel fell into deep mourning. All the nations round about sought to crush them. They said, now that they have no reed or helper, let us make war on them and wipe out their memory from the earth. First, Maccabees chapter 13. Simon as a reader. When Simon heard that Trypho was gathering a large army to invade and ravage the land of the Judah, and saw that the people were trembling with terror, we went up to Jerusalem. There he assembled the peoples and exhorted them in these words, you know what I, my brothers, and my father's house have done for the laws and the sanctuaries, what battles and hardship we have seen. For the sake of this, for the sake of Israel, all my brothers have perished, and I alone am left. Far be it from me then to save my own life in any time of the distress, for I am not better than my brothers. But I'll avenge my nation and the sanctuary, as well as your wives and children, for out of hatred all the Gentiles have united to curse us. As the people heard these words, their spirit were rekindled. They shouted in reply, you are our leader in place of your brothers Judas and Jonathan. Fight our battles and we will do everything that you tell us. So Simon mustered all the men able to fight and hastening to complete the walls of Jerusalem, fortified it on every side. He sent Jonathan son of Absalom to Joppa with a strong force. Jonathan drove out the occupant and remained there. Trypho deceit. Then Trypho moved from the Lomites with a large army to invade the land of the Judah, bring Jonathan with him as prisoners. Simon encamped at the Adida facing the plains. When Trypho learned that Simon had succeeded his brother Jonathan and that he intended to fight him, he sent the ambassador to him with this message. It was on account of the money your brother Jonathan owed the royal treasury in connection with the office that he held, that he had detained him. Now send 100 talents of the silver and 2 of his sons as hostage to guarantees that when he is set free, he will not revolt against us, and we will release him. Simon knew that they were speaking deceitfully to him, nevertheless, for fear of the provoking much hostility among the people, he sent for the money and the boys. Lest the people say, Jonathan perished because I would not send Trypho the money and the boys. So he sent the boys and 100 talents, but Trypho broke his promise and would not release Jonathan. Next, Trypho moved to invade and ravage the country. His troops went around the road that reached Adoras. But Simon and his army moved along opposite him everywhere he went. The people in the citadel kept sending emissaries to Trypho, pressing him to come to them by way of the wilderness and to send them provisions. Although Trypho got all his cavalry ready to go, there was a very heavy snowfall that night, and he could not go on account of the snow, so he left for Gilead. When he was approaching Bas-Gamma, he had Jonathan killed and buried him there. Then Trypho returned to his own land. Jonathan tomb. Simon sent for the remains of the brother Jonathan and buried him in the Modine, the city of his ancestors. All Israel bewailed him with the solemn lamentation, mourning over him for many days. Then Simon erected over the tomb of his father and his brother a monument of the stone, polished the front and back, and raised high enough to see at a distance. He set up 7 pyramids facing one another for his father and his mother and his 4 brothers. For the pyramids, he devised setting up the massive columns, which he adorned with the suit of the armor as a perpetual memorials, and next to armor carved ship which could be seen by all who sailed the sea. This stone which he built the Modine is there to the present days. Alliance of the Simon and Demetrius 2. Tripod dealt treacherously with the young king Antiochus. He killed him, and became king in his place, putting on the crown of the Asia. Thus he brought much evil on the land. Simon, for his part, built up the stronghold of the Judea, fortifying them all around with high towers, thick walls, and gates with bars, and he stored up the provision in the strongholds. Simon also chose men and sent them to the king Demetrius to obtain for the land on the exemption for taxation, since Trypho did nothing but blunders. King Demetrius replied favorably and sent him the following letters. King Demetrius sent greeting to Simon, high priest and the friend of the king, and to the elder and the Jewish peoples. We have received the gold crown and the palm branch that you sent. We are ready to make a lasting peace with you and to write to our official to grant you exemption. Whatever decrees we have made in your regard remain in force, and the stronghold that you have built you may keep. You pardon any oversight and offense committed up to now, as well as the crown tax that you owe. Any other tax that used to be collected in Jerusalem shall no longer be collected there. Any of you qualified for enrollment in our service may be enrolled. Let there be peace between us. Thus in the 117th year, the yoke of the Gentiles was removed from Israel. And the people began to write in the record and the contract. In the first year of the Simon, great high priest, the governor and leader of the Jews, Simon captures Gaza. In those days, Simon besieged Gaza and surrounded it with the troops. He made the siege machine, brought it up against the city, and attacked and captured one of the towers. Those in siege machine leaped down into the city, and a great tumult arose there. Those in the city, together with their wives and children, went up to the underworld with their garment rent, and cried out in the loud voices, begging Simon to grant them terms of peace. They said, "Treat us not according to our evil deeds, but according to your mercy." So Simon came to terms with them and did not attack them. He expelled them from the city. However, he purified the houses in which there were idols. Then he entered the city with hymns and songs of the praise. After removing from it everything that was impure, he settled their people who observed the law. He improved its fortification and built himself a residence. Simon captured the citadels. The people in the citadel in Jerusalem were prevented from going out into the country and begged to buy or sell. They suffered greatly from hunger, and many of them died of the starvation. They finally cried out to Simon. He gave them terms of the peace. He expelled them from the citadel and cleansed it of impurities. On the 23rd day of the second month, in 171st year, the Jews entered the citadel with a shout of the praise, the waving of the palm branches, the playing of the harp and the cymbal and the lyres, and the singing of the hymns and the canticles, because a great enemy of the Israel had been crushed. Simon decreed that this day should be celebrated every year with rejoicing. He also strengthened the fortification of the Temple Mount alongside the citadels, and he and his people dwelt there. Seeing that his son John was now a grown man, Simon made him commander of all his soldiers, and he dwelt in Gaza. First Maccabees chapter 14, capture of the Demetrius 2. In the 172nd year, King Demetrius assembled his army and marched into Media to obtain help so that he could fight Trypho. When Artaxerxes, king of Persia and Media, heard that Demetrius had entered his territories, he sent one of the generals to take him alive. The general went forth and attacked the army of Demetrius. He captured him and brought him to Artaxerxes, who put him under guard. Praise of the Simon. The land was at last all the day of the Simon, who sought the good of his nation. His rule delighted his people, and his glory all his days. As his crying glory, he took Joppa for port and made it the gateway to the isles of the seas. He enlarged the border of his nation and gained control of the countries. He took many prisoners of the war and made himself master of the Gazara, Beth-Jor, and the Atadus. He cleansed the citadel of its impurities. There was no one to withstand him. The people cultivated their land in peace. The land yielded its produce. The tree of the field their fruit. Old men sat in the squares, all talking about the good times, while the young men put on the glorious raiment of the war. He supplied the city with food and equipped them with means of the defense, till his glorious name reached the ends of the earth. He brought peace to the land, and Israel was filled with great joy. Everyone sat under his vine and fig trees, with no one to disturb them. Though a attacker was left in the land, the king in those days was crushed. He strengthened all the lowly among his people and was zealous for the law. He destroyed the lawless and the wicked. The sanctuary he made splendid and multiplied its furnishings. Alliance with Rome and Sparta. When people in Rome and even the Sparta heard that Jonathan had died, they were deeply grieved. But when they heard that his brother Simon had become high priest in his place and was master of the territory and its cities, they sent him inscribed tablet of the bronze to renew with him the friendship and the alliance that they had established with his brothers Judah and Jonathan. These were read before the assembly in Jerusalem. This is a copy of the letter that Spartans sent. The ruler and the city of the Spartans sent greeting to the Simon the high priest, the elders, the priests, and the rest of the Jewish people, our brothers. The ambassadors sent to our people have informed us of your glory and renown, and we rejoice at their coming. In accordance with what they said, we have recorded the following in the public decrees. Numenius, son of the Antiochus, and Antipharos, son of Jason, ambassador of the Jews, have come to us to renew their friendship with us. The people have resolved to receive this man with honor and deposited a copy of their words in the public archives, so that the people of the Sparta may have a record of them. A copy of this decree has been made for Simon the high priest. After this, Simon sent Numenius to Rome with a large gold shield weighing 1,000 minas to confirm the alliance with the Romans. Official honors for Simon. When the people heard of these things, they said, "How shall we thank Simon and his son? He and his brother and his father's house have stood firm and repulsed the Israel enemies, and so have established its freedom." So they made the inscription on bronze tablet, which they affixed to pillars on the mountain Zion. The following is a copy of the inscription. On the 18th day of the year rules in the 172nd year. That is the third year under Simon, the great high priest in Asa Rameres. In a great assembly of the priests, the people, ruler of the nation, and elder of the regions, the following proclamation was made to us. Since there have often been wars in our country, Simon, son of the priest Matthias, descendant of the Joaribs, and his brother had put themselves in danger and resisted the enemy of their nations, so that their sanctuary and the law might be maintained, and they have thus brought great glory to their nations. Jonathan latterly the nation became their high priest and was gathered to his peoples. When the enemies sought to invade and ravage their country and to violate their sanctuary, Simon rose and fought for his nation, spending large sum of his own money to equip his nation forces and give them their pay. He had fortified the city of the Judea, especially the border city of the Beth Jor, formerly the site of the enemy weaponries, and he stationed there a garrison of the Jewish soldiers. He also fortified Joppa by the sea and Gazara on the border of the Azotus, a place previously occupied by the enemy. This city he settled with Jews and furnished them with all that was necessary for their restoration. When the people saw Simon's fidelity and the glory he planned to bring to his nation, they made him their leader and high priest because all he had accomplished and the justice and the fidelity he had shown his nation. In every way he sought to exalt his people. In his time and under his guidance, they succeeded in driving the Gentiles out of their country and those in the city of David in Jerusalem, who had built for themselves a citadel from which they used to sally forth to defile the environs of the sanctuary and inflict grave injury on its purities. In this citadel he stationed the Jewish soldiers, and he strengthened its fortification for the security of the land and the city, while he also built up the wall of Jerusalem to a great height. Consequently, King Demetrius confirmed him in the high priesthood, made him one of his friends, and conferred great honor on him. This was because he had heard that the Romans had addressed the Jews as friends, allies, and brothers, that they received Simon envoys with honors, and that the Jewish people and their priests had decided the following: Simon shall be their leader and high priest forever until the trustworthy prophet arise. He shall act as governor over them and shall have a charge of the sanctuary to make a regulation concerning its function and concerning the country, its weapons and the strongholds. He shall be obeyed by all contract in the country shall be written in his name, and he shall be clothed in purple and gold. It shall not be lawful for any of the people or priest to nullify any of these decisions, to contradict the orders given by him, or to convene an assembly in the country without his consent, to be clothed in the purple or wear a gold buckles. Whoever acts otherwise or violates any of these prescriptions shall be liable to punishment. Thus all the people approved of the granting Simon the right to act in accord with these decisions. And Simon accepted and agreed to high priest, the governor, and the ethnarch of the Jewish people and the priest, to have authority over all. It was decreed that this inscription should be engraved on bronze tablet to be set up in conspicuous place in the precinct of the sanctuaries, and that copy of it should be deposited in the treasury, where they would be available to Simon and his sons. First Maccabees chapter 15, a letter of the Antiochus 7. Antiochus, son of the king Demetrius, sent a letter from the island of the sea to Simon, the priest and the ethnarch of the Jews, and to all the nation, which Read as follows. King Antiochus sends greeting to Simon the high priest and ethnarch and to the Jewish nation. Whereas certain villains have gained control of the kingdom of our ancestors, I intend to reclaim it, that I may restore it to its former state. I have recruited a large number of the I intend to make a rending a country so that I may take a revenge on those who have reigned over country and laid waste many cities in my kingdom. Now therefore I confirm to you all the tax exemption that the king before me granted you and whatever other privilege they are conceded to you. I authorize you to coin your own money as legal tender in your countries. Jerusalem and its sanctuary shall be free. All the weapons you have prepared and all the strongholds you have built and now occupy shall remain in your possession. All debt, present or future, due to the royal treasury shall be cancelled for you now and for all time. When the establishes our kingdom, we will greatly honor you and your nation and the temple, so that your glory will be manifest in all the earth. In the 174th year, Antiochus invaded the land of his ancestors, and all troops rallied to him, so that few were left with Tryphon. Pursued by Antiochus, Tryphon fled to Dor by the sea, realizing that what trouble had come upon him now that his soldiers had deserted him. Antiochus encamped before Dor with 120,000 infantry and 8,000 cavalry. While he surrounded the city, his ships closed from the sea, so that he pressed it hard by land and the sea, and let no one go in or out. Roman alliance renewed. Meanwhile, Numenius and his companion came from Rome with letters containing their message to various kings and countries. Lucius, consul of the Romans, sends a greeting to King Ptolemy, ambassador of the Jews. Our friends and allies have come to us to renew their earlier friendship and alliance. They had been sent by Simon the high priest and the Jewish peoples, and they brought with them a gold shield of the 1,000 minas. Therefore, we have decided to write to the various kings and the countries that they are not to venture to harm them or wage war against them or their cities or their countries, and are not to assist those who fight against them. We have also decided to accept the shield from them. If then any troublemakers from their country take refuge with you, hand them over to Simon the high priest, so that he may punish them according to their law. The council sent identical letters to King Demetrius, Atalos, Ariates, and Asaces. To all countries, Samas, the Spartan, Delos, Midos, Sicyon, Caria, Samos, Pamphilias, Lycia, Helicarnassos, Rhodes, Phasaris, Cos, Sidea, Arados, Gotina, Cnidos, Cyprus, and Cyrene. A copy of the letter was also sent to Simon the high priest. Hostility from Antiochus 7. When the king Antiochus encamped before Dor, he assaulted it continuously both with the troops and with the siege engines he had made. He blockaded Tryphon by preventing anyone from going in or out. Simon sent to Antiochus support to 2,000 allied troops, together with the silver and gold and much equipment. But he refused to accept the aid. In fact, he broke all agreement he had previously made with Simon and became hostile toward him. He sent Athenobius, one of his friends, to confer with Simon and say, "You are occupying Joppa and Gaza and the citadel of the Jerusalem. These are cities of my kingdoms. You have laid waste their territories, done great harm to the land, and taken possession of the many districts in my kingdoms. Now therefore give up the city you have seized and the tribute money of the district you control outside the territory of the Judea. Or instead pay me 500 talent of the silver for the devastation you have caused and 500 talent more for the tribute money of the cities. If you do not do this, we will come and make war on you." So Athenobius, the king of France, came to Jerusalem, and on seeing the splendor of the Simon court, the gold and silver plate on the sideboard, and his rich display, he was amazed when he gave him the king's messages. Simon said to him in reply, "It is now foreign land we have taken, nor have we seized the property of others, but only our ancestral heritage, which aforetime have been unjustly held by our enemies. Now that we have the opportunity, we are holding on to the heritage of our ancestors. As for Joppa and Gaza, which you demand, those cities were doing great harm to our people or our countries. For these will give you 100 talents." Athenobius made no reply, but returned to think in anguish when he told him of the Simon words of his splendor and of all he had seen. The king fell into a violent rage. Victory over Sandybius. Trypho had boarded a ship and escaped to the Othotheas. Then the king appointed Sandybius commander-in-chief of the seacoast and gave him infantry and cavalry forces. He ordered him to encamp against Judea and fortify Kedron and strengthen its gate, so that he could wage war on the peoples. Meanwhile, the king went in pursuit of the Trypho. When Sandybius came to Jamnia, he began to harass the people and to make incursions into Judea, where he took people captive and massacred them. As the king ordered, he fortified Kedron and stationed cavalry and infantry there, so that they could go out and patrol the roads of the Judea. First Maccabees chapter 16. John then went up from Gaza and told his father Simon what Sandybius was doing. Simon called his two oldest sons, Judas and John, and said to them, "I and my brother and my father's house have fought the wars of Israel from our youth until today, and many times we succeed in saving Israel. I have not grown old, but you by the mercy of the heaven have come to maturity. Take my place and my brothers and go out and fight for our nation, and may the help of heaven be with you." John then marshaled in the land 20,000 warriors and cavalry, setting out against Sandybius. They spent the night at Modine. Rose early and marched into the plain. There facing them was an immense army of the foot soldiers and the cavalry, and between the two armies was a wadi. John and his people took their position against the enemy. Seeing that his people were afraid to cross the wadi, John crossed first. When his men saw this, they crossed over after him. Then he divided his infantry and put his cavalry in the center, for the enemy cavalry were very numerous. They blew the trumpet, and Sandybius and his army were routed. Many of them fell wounded, and the rest fled toward the stronghold. It was then that John brother Judas fell wounded, but John pursued them until Sandybius reached Kedron, which he had fortified. Some took refuge in towers on the plain of the Azotus, but John set fire to these, and about 2,000 of the enemy perished. He then returned to Judea in peace. Brother of the Simon and his sons. But Ptolemy, son of the Abud-Boros, had been appointed the governor of the plain of the Jericho, and he had much silver and gold, being the son-in-law of the high priest. But his heart became proud, and he was determined to get control of the country, so he made a treacherous plan to do away with Simon and his son. As Simon was inspecting the city of the country and providing for their needs, he and his sons Mattithias and Judas went down to Jericho in the 177th year, in the 11th month, that is the month Shevat. The son of Boros gave them a distinctful welcome in the little stronghold called Dak, which he had built. He served them a sumptuous banquet, but he had his men hidden there. Then when Simon and his son were drunk, Ptolemy as his men sprang up, weapon in hand, rushed upon Simon in the banquet hall, and killed him, his two sons, and some of his servants. By this victorious act of the treasury, he repaid good with evils. Then Ptolemy wrote a report and sent it to the king, asking him to send the troops to help him and to turn over him their country and its cities. He sent other men to Gaza to do away with John. To army officials he sent a letter inviting them to come to him so that he might present them with silver, gold, and gift. He also sent others to seize Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. But someone ran ahead and brought word to John and Gaza that his father and his brother had perished, and Ptolemy had sent men to kill you also. So hearing this, John was utterly astounded. When men came to kill him, he seized them and put them to death, for he knew that they sought to kill him. Now the rest of the act of John, his words and the brave deeds he performed, his revealing of the words and all his achievement. These are recorded in the chronicle of his high priesthood from the time that he had succeeded his father as high priest.